The year is 1932. America is in the throes of the Great Depression. Texas, though geographically vast and rich in resources, is not immune. The state's economy, heavily reliant on agriculture and oil, is reeling. Farmers face plunging crop prices, their land burdened with debt. The oil boom of the 1920s has gone bust, leaving behind unemployment and hardship. In this climate of despair and uncertainty, Texans prepare to elect a new governor. The incumbent, Ross Sterling, faces an uphill battle. He is a businessman, not a politician. His attempts to address the economic crisis have fallen short. The stage is set for a political showdown, one that will expose the raw divisions within the state and the nation. The Great Depression is more than just an economic crisis. It is a crisis of confidence. Texans are losing faith in their leaders and in the system itself. They are looking for someone to blame, someone to offer solutions, someone to offer hope. The 1932 gubernatorial election becomes a focal point for these anxieties, a referendum on the present and a glimpse into the uncertain future. The economic hardships of the Great Depression weigh heavily on the minds of Texans. The unemployment lines grow longer with each passing day. Businesses shutter their windows, unable to weather the economic storm. Farmers, once the backbone of the Texas economy, are forced to abandon their land, their dreams turning to dust. The stage is set for a contentious election, one where economic issues take center stage. In the summer of 1932, Texas Democrats face a pivotal choice. Two dominant figures emerge in the Democratic primary, each representing a distinct vision for the state's future. On one side stands Miriam "Ma" Ferguson, a former governor herself. She is a populist firebrand, promising to champion the common man against the wealthy and powerful. Her husband, James E. Ferguson, a former governor impeached and removed from office for corruption, looms large over her campaign. On the other side is Ross Sterling, the incumbent governor. He represents the conservative wing of the Democratic Party. Sterling is a businessman, a banker by trade, and he brings a business-minded approach to governing. His supporters see him as a steady hand in turbulent times, someone who can restore order and stability. However, his opponents view him as out of touch with the plight of ordinary Texans, too beholden to the interests of the wealthy and powerful. The Democratic primary is a bitter and divisive affair. Ferguson and Sterling trade barbs on the campaign trail, each accusing the other of being unfit to lead the state. Ferguson attacks Sterling's record on the economy, blaming him for the state's woes. Sterling, in turn, questions Ferguson's competence and judgment, reminding voters of her husband's scandalous past. Ma Ferguson's candidacy is inextricably linked to her husband, Pa Ferguson. James E. Ferguson, a charismatic and controversial figure, had served as governor of Texas from 1915 to 1917. However, his tenure was cut short by impeachment. He was removed from office by the Texas Senate on charges of corruption and abuse of power. Despite his impeachment, Pa Ferguson remained a powerful force in Texas politics. He continued to command the loyalty of a large segment of the population, particularly among rural voters and those who felt left behind by the economic and social changes sweeping the state. His supporters viewed him as a champion of the common man, a fighter against the elites who they believed controlled the levers of power. Ma Ferguson's campaign taps into this deep well of support for her husband. She promises to continue his legacy, to fight for the same principles of limited government, individual liberty, and economic opportunity that he espoused. Her opponents, however, warn that a vote for Ma is a vote for Pa, a return to the days of corruption and scandal. Section 4. Sterling's struggle, a governor adrift. Ross Sterling, the incumbent governor, faces a challenging re-election campaign. The Great Depression has taken a heavy toll on Texas, and Sterling, despite his best efforts, has been unable to stem the tide of economic suffering. His attempts to provide relief have been met with mixed success, and his critics argue that he is out of touch with the needs of ordinary Texans. Sterling's background as a businessman, once seen as an asset, now works against him. His opponents paint him as a tool of the wealthy, more interested in protecting the interests of big business than in helping those struggling to put food on the table. They point to his close ties to the oil industry, which has benefited from favourable legislation during his tenure, as evidence of his misplaced priorities. Furthermore, Sterling's efforts to address the economic crisis are hampered by his own conservative ideology. He is a fiscal conservative, opposed to government intervention in the economy. He believes that the best way to help the state recover is to balance the budget, cut spending, and reduce taxes. However, these policies, while sound in theory, do little to alleviate the immediate suffering of those hit hardest by the Depression. Section 5. A Republican Hope. Bullington enters the fray. Amidst the Democratic slugfest, a Republican candidate emerges, hoping to capitalize on the divisions within the opposition party. Orville Bullington, a lawyer and former state senator, throws his hat into the ring. He represents a long-shot bid for the governorship, as Texas has been a solidly Democratic state for decades. Bullington campaigns on a platform of fiscal responsibility, limited government, and individual liberty. He criticizes both Ferguson and Sterling for their handling of the economy, arguing that their policies have exacerbated the state's problems. He presents himself as a common-sense alternative to the two major party candidates, someone who can bring a fresh perspective to the state's challenges. However, Bullington faces an uphill battle. The Republican Party is weak in Texas, and he lacks the name recognition and resources of his Democratic opponents. Moreover, the national political climate is not favorable to Republicans. The Great Depression has dealt a severe blow to the party's credibility, and many voters blame the Republicans for the nation's economic woes.